we think the timing is right is because the nature of growth in the city is evolving. What has been a past typified by territorial expansion, as this chart on the left shows, and you all are going to get a copy of this presentation. Patrick has it, Patrick Holland, and he'll share it with you. Shows that we began the 1950 era with 40 square miles. We doubled in size in 10 years. The last few decades, the last couple decades, however, have shown a market decline in the annexation activity. And this is just a realistic outcome of kind of the region as it has evolved. So it doesn't mean it's not going to happen anymore. It just means it's will not be the prevalent aspect of our growth. Meanwhile, on the right, population increases pretty steady. And the last three bars there are the next 30 years and what's projected by MORPC for the city. That's 300,000 people. And, I've worked for the city for about 32 years. And in that time period, we gained 300,000 people. So that number is not as crazy as it sounds. That's what we're anticipating. But again, a lot of that growth is going to be taking place in the existing city or the existing urban area. Growth trends, rising housing costs, a lot of concern about affordability of housing. This is across Central Ohio. Lack of transportation options, recognizing that as we evolve as a city and a region, we need better transportation choices, more transportation choices. Increasing demand for multifamily, smaller homes, smaller lots. This is just an outgrowth of an evolving population. It doesn't mean that single family is going away. It just means that single family large lot development is not as large a proportion of the market as it used to be. And of course, folks want walkable neighborhoods. We're seeing that. And we're also seeing, unfortunately, that not all neighborhoods have prospered. Not all parts of the city have done as well. And so we're asking these questions as we look to the future. Where are people going to live and work? How will they get around? What will our neighborhoods look like? And how do we build opportunity for our residents? Among the areas that we're focused on are transit. We're working with CODA, MORPC, Franklin County, and others to look at how we can elevate transit in the city moving forward. MORPC recently concluded a regional housing strategy, which is focused on affordable housing in particular, identifying the gaps and strategies that not just Columbus, but our suburban neighbors can take to meet the need. The city has a sustainability effort that's now in its third year, and that's been a big step forward for us, and then zoning. I'm going to skip this slide because we've already talked about a lot of this. This is the kind of stuff that you know. The zoning code process is two phases. The first phase, which is where we are, started in November, is looking at the current code and process, determining what's working, what's not working, and then identifying priorities for an updated code. What are the areas that we really need to focus on? This work will culminate in the summer, and that will allow us to begin phase two. We're actually sort of getting down to the nuts and bolts of writing code and looking at whether or not we need to do any map changes, et cetera. Throughout this conversation, I think one of the things that we want to make sure we're doing is reaching a broad outreach in the community. A lot of times in the development process, we hear from neighbors who will immediately be impacted by a particular proposal. We obviously hear from applicants, folks like you who are really very familiar with the process. But there are a lot of folks out there who we don't always get to hear from. So one of the things we're going to be doing is sort of really working to expand our outreach. So the survey that I mentioned earlier, you should have gotten an email with a link to our survey as well as the website. The website is, if you can find yourself at www.columbus.gov, it's /zoning update. The link is there for the survey, as well as an opportunity to add your name and email address for any future updates. I hope that you'll take advantage of it. There are opportunities on the survey to fill in the blank if you think we've missed something. We'd love to hear from you. I think we're sitting at about 650 responses right now, which is great, but we certainly want more. So I'm going to stop, let you guys get back to your agenda. And if you have questions right now, I'll do my best. But mostly I just wanted to say this is happening. We hope that you'll fill out the survey and stay tuned for more information. It's going to take a while to work through this whole thing, but it's pretty exciting. So thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. All right, next up, Kathy Fox. Kathy, you with us?
Yes,
Okay. Have you been sworn in?
not yet.
You swear affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you. Please proceed.
I'm here to just give a brief update about the Kroger property at 7th and High. I know the UIDRB has noted at several of your meetings in the last couple of years that the property is not in compliance with the approved site plan and the commercial plan development that was approved about a dozen years ago. The site plan requires a commercial building at the northwest corner of the property, but that building has never been constructed. Following up on a letter from the Columbus Landmarks Foundation to Kroger that was sent in September and that went unanswered, in December, a group of university area and community organizations sent a letter to City Council asking if they would try to initiate conversation, a meeting with Kroger. The December letter was signed by the Wineland Park Community Civic Association, the Denison Place Neighborhood Association, the University Area Commission, and the Columbus Landmarks Foundation. The letter contained two main points. The first being concern that the site plan and CPD had not been completed as approved. And the second, a suggestion that a small 1928 auto repair building from the west side of High Street might be relocated to the Kroger property to advance fulfilling the site plan requirement for a building there. Council staff contacted Kroger to suggest there be a meeting. Kroger's response was that they are not interested in having the 1928 building relocated to their site, which is, of course, their prerogative. However, there was no response from Kroger on how or when they plan to complete their approved site plan. The council staff is following up on this unanswered part of the letter. But it would be really helpful to all the organizations involved to hear UIDRB's thoughts and suggestions about the situation.
Thank you, Kathy.
I have a comment to make. I'm very sympathetic to this issue. I'm actually the one who came up with putting a building on the corner to try to mitigate the parking lot because I was a consultant to Kroger at the time. And part of the, now I wasn't at the review board meetings because that would have been a conflict, but I can tell you I know what the strategy was and I know what was discussed. And that building was an important part of the approval for that project because it was a way to separate the enormous parking lot from High Street. And there were commitments made to build that building. And I believe it was within so many years, and I don't remember the exact language of the legislation. But I believe this is an instance when a very large company is just thumbing their nose up at our board and our process. And I haven't done work for them since then, so I don't believe I have a conflict of interest at all anymore. And I believe that something should be done about this. And I think I and others have asked at times that a zoning violation be written on the property for not complying with the development plan. So I don't know what the next step is here. I know that there's been a lot of well, we really don't want to get into this, but honestly, we now have a High Street that has become very built up, very cheek by jowl. There are no vacant lots. There are no open spaces. This is the largest, most impactful non-building area on the street. And it's not supposed to be that way, shouldn't be that way. And so I'm not sure what this board can do, but I believe we need to do something to try to get the city to move on a corporate citizen that they're being too kind to, in my opinion. That's it.
Thank you, Frank. Any other quick comments? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kathy. First application up tonight is UID 2101-003, 79 East 19th. Bradley, have you been sworn in?
I have not.
Okay. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please go ahead and give your presentation.
So the purpose of this project, staff, do you want to introduce it?
Yeah.
I can go ahead and read the staff report. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
That's all right. The applicant's proposing to remove the existing front porch and roof due to severe foundation settling along the outer corners, water damage at the house connection, and to improve the curb appeal of the property. The applicant is proposing to replace it with a concrete slab and split-face concrete masonry unit porch. The proposed porch will feature wood columns, trim, and framing. Additionally, the new porch footprint will match the footprint of the existing porch. Staff recommends approval. The University District Plan recommends that the front porch entrances should be enhanced with a porch that is in scale and proportion of traditional porches in the district. The proposal is similar to the traditional porches in the district, but staff recommends the applicant consider brick for the enclosure around the porch, and that the board may also discuss with the applicant the ability to rehab and repair the existing porch. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So as Patrick said, this is basically just replacing the existing porch. The owner has repaired it many times over the years, and there's a lot of water issues, differential settlement of the foundation, and it's just not really in a good position to be able to be repaired. So we wanted to replace it in the same location and match some of the detailing that is on the current porch and that fits in well with the adjacent porches, size, scale, and detailing of the trim work. What's existing there now is in pretty bad shape. So what we wanted to do is use split face CMU because we obviously can't do field stone or anything like that, but felt that was a reasonable compromise, and widen up the porch columns to match more in scale with the adjacent properties. We're tying into the existing brick pilasters that are attached to the building, and we feel that this is a reasonable addition to the neighborhood.
Thank you. Okay, I'll turn it over to the board for questions, comments.
Can you go to the front elevation, please? Thank you.
And Bradley, do you have any photographs of the existing condition?
I unfortunately didn't include that in the packet. So, the existing columns are brick up to, I think, 30 inches, and like a foreshortened column, wood column up above. The capital detailing matches what I have here, but instead of having that brick go up to that height, I just did wood column straight down.
I'm looking at it on Street View right now. Is the column on your because it just looks like on your elevation that it's considerably thinner than what's there right now.
It is thinner than what's there right now. When I was laying this out, I put in the same width of what's existing, and it just seemed really fat and awkward.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I thinned them out to be a little bit more proportional to the size of the porch.
Bradley, I can't see the sections, but the decking is poured in place concrete, or what is the floor?
It's concrete.
Yeah. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm not a big fan of split face concrete block as a substitute for what's, you know, what the old foundation was. Not that I'm after you doing stone, but you know, I wonder if something that is either parged masonry or what, I'm not sure, but there's just something odd about split face block for me on a building like this.
Well, the issue I have is, well, you can see it on that side elevation where you've got the stone on the building and what happens on the corner. Because if you look at again at the street, you zoom into on the inside corner where the existing porch hits the face of the house. That's just going to be an awkward. I agree with you. It's going to be an awkward material transition because I think the base of the entire house is a stone, so it's going to be weird that it switches at the front.
I think you might be looking at the wrong side of the street. And the
Yeah.
street that doesn't.
No, and it's the other side of the street. Yeah. You just flip around.
Yep, there it is, the middle one.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, so the existing stone that's on the house it's not really a field stone. It's more like an oversized limestone kind of
Yeah.
Molded,
unit.
rusticated.
It's
Yeah,
kind of hard to describe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
What I was recommending was to put brick all the way around, like the enclosure there, too, instead of the wood railings.
Can you go to your front elevation again of the proposed porch? There you go. So the other thing that the change, I can't tell, cheek walls that come out from the front porch face. Are there no cheek walls that are going to be part of this new construction?
No.
Okay.
Hey, this is Keone. Can you just clarify for me which house are we talking about? Is it the red brick one or the buff brick one?
It's the red brick one.
I see. Okay. Right. I mean, I would agree with Frank. I think, like, you know, I mean, split face block is going to look like split face block. I'd, you know, prefer just do smooth face block and put a parch coat of cement plaster on it. And at least that way it's sort of neutral, and to Carrie's point, it doesn't conflict with the sort of stone foundation around the backside of the house. It's, you know, at least it'll read as kind of more neutral and just you know, something that was kind of added but is sort of non-offensive. I mean, I guess my take on the rest of it is fine. You know, I mean, the existing porch is fine, but it's not so wonderful that it feels like it needs to be replicated in kind. So, you know, I think going with the thinner columns and the wood rail, I personally don't have a problem with that. I think if I had one thing I'd like to see changed, it would be the split face block that Frank already said.
You know, one thing you might consider is looking zoom way in on the street view. It appears on top of whatever kind of limestone, it's got a much larger rectangular piece of limestone that all appears to be in really good shape. And if you could, I mean, what would really look nicer is if you did brick below that and then replace that piece of stone at the top.
Mm-hmm.
I think it adds a lot of character.
Oh, there's like a belt there, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't appear to be cracking. There's shrubbery on the left side, so I can't see, but the one on the right doesn't appear to be damaged. I mean, you have to be careful getting the mortar out and getting it off there without breaking it, but it doesn't appear to be damaged.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would disagree with that. I mean, I think you look at these buildings and they all have these bases of stone or a different material. I don't think it makes any sense in terms of, and I apologize for being so frank about this, but I don't think it makes any sense to do a brick foundation on this porch and change the way it meets the ground. Like the building to the left and the right of it, as well as it, they all sit on these kind of buff stone bases that, you know, indicates that there's a kind of bottom to the thing.
Yeah.
And to put brick on the below side of it, I mean, one, I think aesthetically doesn't make a lot of sense, but two, from a constructional and budgetary standpoint, the brick's not going to carry the load of the porch. You'd have to veneer it in front of block, and it just, my take on it is still do smooth face block, put a parched course of cement plaster on it, and call it a day.
Plant more shrubs in front of it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, what the landscaping is, although I agree with Carrie on this one. I do think that would be a great touch, what he had suggested.
Mm-hmm. I agree with Carrie too. I would like to see if that limestone is reusable. It adds detail. And I just want to say I really appreciate, Bradley, that you're keeping this kind of triad of quite nice pieces of the architectural fabric vital. So
Right.
by the work that you're doing, I think it's overall a great improvement.
Thanks. Yeah, salvaging the limestone, you know, we can, when we get into the demo portion of it, in the event that it isn't in such good a shape, would like a precast concrete or something be a reasonable alternative to matching kind of that profile of it, or like what would you suggest?
I mean, look, again, I think if it's in good shape and you can salvage it, go for it. If it's in lousy shape, for God's sake, don't put precast concrete in its place. Just do what you've designed.
Okay.
Is the porch wood decking?
Yes.
The existing one is it's kind of weird. I'm not sure what's under. It has a wood decking, but I'm not sure what the substructure is because it's fairly solid. So I don't know if the concrete was in bad shape and they came in and put like a deck on it or what.
Okay. And what is your intention for the new porch floor and stair?
Concrete slab on grade.
Okay. And the stairs also are concrete.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I've got one. Brad, you seem to be hanging out with pretty unsavory, disreputable colleagues. I don't know what to say about that.
Thank you, sir.
It's good to see you, Dad.
Nice seeing you, Ken.
We don't have any more comments or questions. Do we have a motion for approval? Does anybody want to make a motion for approval on this?
Someone who wants to save the limestone needs to make the motion, because if I make the motion, it's just going to be smooth CMU parched with concrete and call it a day.
Okay, I make a motion that we use smooth CMU with concrete, and if possible, the limestone cap be used from the existing to add that bit of ornament to the from the old to the new. with the other elements of change as drawn approved.
Thank you, KB. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded.
Okay, that was 2 seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, County.
All opposed, same sign. Motion is approved.
Can
Thanks
you,
very much.
can you repeat that second condition, please?
So
I
it's
heard
just-
that you no use the cast concrete, but what was that second part?
Reusing the limestone cap
That
that's
reuse
currently in
the
place.
If it's
Okay.
salvageable.
It's solid. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Next case up for conceptual review. UID 20-10-003, 88 East 9th Avenue. Patrick, give us a rundown.
Yep. The existing site consists of single-family homes and vacant lots. The recommended land use is higher intensity residential. The applicant is proposing to build a 5-story, 143-unit apartment building. 7 existing residential structures will be demolished as part of the proposal. Ground floor walk-up units will be featured on East 9th with the rest of the units above. An amenity feature and leasing office is proposed at the southwest corner of the site. 1 parking space per unit will be provided, and parking will be built both below ground and at ground level. The FAR for the proposal is 3.33. Changes from the previous proposal include updated streetscape perspectives on 9th Avenue and a differentiated roof line in response to board comments. The applicant will be requesting to rezone the site from R4 to AR3. In addition to rezoning to AR3, the proposal results in the need for the following variances. Reducing the lot area per dwelling unit from 700 square feet to 371, reducing the landscape area behind the most rear portion of the building from 5% of the lot area to 0, increasing the permitted lot coverage from 30% to 92%, and to remove existing 10-inch caliper trees without replacement on parcel, reducing the calculated parking form to 436 spaces to 141 spaces, reducing the calculated building setback line based on buildings to the east and west from 6.5 feet to 2 feet as depicted on the site plan, and to reduce the minimum rear setback from 2 feet to 1 feet. Additionally, they're asking to increase the maximum building size from 10,200 square feet to 200,228 square feet, and increasing the FAR from 0.8 to 3.33, and reducing the tree planting from 15 to 0. Staff is generally supportive of the proposal. Additional information will be required at the time for a request for action, including materials, lighting, landscaping, etc., to review for consistency with plan recommendations. The University District Plan recommends high-intensity residential for the site, and also recommends the scale of new construction be influenced by nearby contributing buildings. The streetscape and the setbacks of higher story from the front facade should be considered for taller buildings to lessen their visual impact. The current applicants reflect changes to the roof line, updated streetscapes, and perspectives. In addition to the changes shown, staff continues to recommend additional design features to mitigate the impacts of FAR and density, including additional setbacks or step down in height towards the neighborhood, and additional setbacks or variation on the East 9th elevation. Staff consideration for support for higher FAR is based on the inclusion of creative design and high quality materials, such as traditional masonry throughout the project, and contributes to the community character. Additionally, staff notes street trees should be provided as appropriate in coordination with the city's Recreation and Parks Department. The application is being heard for conceptual review.
Thank you, Patrick. Who do we have that's representing to speak on this case today?
Kristen Penrod with Parallels here.
Okay.
Brett Rohde Partners.
Okay. Let me swear you.
And Dave Perry also, Steve.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Dave Perry also.
Got it. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to cut you off.
Yep.
Would you all please raise your right hand? You swear affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
I do.
Thank you. Any one of you can please go ahead and give your presentation.
Okay. So I'll let Brett do most of the talking on the architectural. I just wanted to kind of give a recap since the last time we chatted about a month ago before the holidays. And when we last met, we discussed kind of working on two main areas of the building from the conversations and feedback from you guys. One of the main areas that we focused on was the fifth floor and trying to, soften that area, maybe add a crowning touch, take a little bit of a bigger risk, and create some ability to break up the verticality of the lower floors. So we really focused on that fifth floor and how we could do that. The other area we spent a good bit of time looking at is the streetscape and how we were going to tie in the sidewalk and widen it, and also tie it into the walk-up units that we have on the ground floor. So we spent some time with our civil engineer, landscape and architect, and now we have a presentation for you guys with a lot more detail of showing how that will actually function. So I'll let Brett kind of walk through what he did, and Brett, if you want to take it from there.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, board members, for allowing us to come here again and get some more good advice and some great input. So Kristen touched on it. We've taken to heart your comments, and to the best of our ability with what we're given here on the site, we think we've incorporated at least definitely the spirit and the ideas that we've taken away from the series of meetings we've had with you. So I'll just go back to just refresh everyone's memory about where this is, and I'll do this very quickly. This is on 9th Avenue between 9th and 10th. It's on the east side of Section Alley. High Street is a couple blocks away to the west. Our ground floor has evolved just a bit with some additional landscaping. We've widened sidewalks on 9th and Section Avenue. We've got 7-foot sidewalks now on 9th and 5-foot sidewalks on Section. We have landscaping all the way around the building as before, but it's evolved a bit with our landscape architects being on board. Really not much has changed with our ground floor at all, just minor refinements. Our parking continues to be completely encapsulated by apartment units, with the exception of a very small gap on 10th Avenue. There's a good bit of the parking that's actually below grade on this side, and there's no parking above the first floor. The second floor, we still have our amenity deck and courtyard for the residents. The typical floor is largely unchanged except for small refinements. And we have our 5th floor here, which is slightly different because of the new roof that we want to talk about with you today. And here's a roof plan to give you an idea of where these changes are on the roof that we're going to look at in just a few minutes. Again, street level is heavily landscaped. We feel we've brought some real comfort and some really safety to the street here at 9th Avenue particularly. We have our ground floor units, which are on both 9th Avenue and Section Avenue, and those are accessible by the residents from the ground floor. So this is a close-up of how that looks now. Again, we still have our balconies and insets, a lot of articulation in the facade, very high quality materials with the masonry. But I want to go to the roof now and focus a little bit on that. This is the 5th floor, and we've got a number of you commented about how kind of unarticulated our previous design was. So we've taken that to heart and created these what I think are going to be wonderful attic units with large windows and a very active roofscape, if you will, but in a way that is still within the vernacular of a little bit of a historic kind of approach here, which I think is appropriate for the neighborhood. Again, I think I've got one more view. I'll go back to the view looking to the east on 9th Avenue. And here you can see our lobby entrance on the street level, and it gives you a good idea of what that kind of sawtooth attic 5th floor looks like. So with that, I'll open it up to questions and comments.
Okay, well, hold on. Do it as Dave. Do you have anything else that you wanted to add?
Thank you, Steve. Not at this time.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you for the presentation. We'll have feedback and questions from commissioners.
This is Kate. I have a question. I don't remember speaking earlier. You said today that you have a new landscape plan. And so I'm just wondering, what are the species of those trees that you're showing? And what is the dimension away from the building that they're being shown?
Species, I can't comment on that. Kristen, do you have information on species at this point, or is it still too early?
I know MKSK has come up with species, but I cannot tell you exactly what they're planning right now. So,
what I'm wondering is how tall are they going to get, and what is the distance away from the facade of the building? What's the likely? I
do have that. 11 feet is where. Let me go to a different view. I could probably. So I think I can draw on here. At least I'm going to give it a shot. So, so this line right here is 11 feet 3 inches from the facade. So that's 11 feet 3 to the start of this this front planter.
And how wide's your tree line?
The tree line is 8 feet. Yes.
What do you think?
Yeah.
They ought to be big shade trees. I mean, those do not want to be trees. I mean, I don't know if you were going, KB, if you have a concern, they're too close to the building. You've got 11, you got 15 feet. That's, I mean, they should be substantial street trees. At least I think they should be.
I think that's the idea. That's what I appreciate about creating a canopy over the sidewalk and a canopy that begin to make a different streetscape. I think that's quite nice, and that's why I think the species of the tree and their location and their proximity is important, if that's the goal.
Yeah. So my only comment on that is, even though there's no parallel parking on your side of the street, I would either, if you go to the one rendered view, go back one. Yeah, that one's fine. I'm going to do shrubs. I mean, as a rule, I don't really think shrubs belong in a tree lawn. I think it's tree lawns are about turf and trees, and that's it. If you're going to do it, you don't want turf on any. If you're going to do shrubs, and it's going to be a block of shrubs, and then you're going to do a block of lawn, and then a block of shrub. I mean, I think there could be an interesting rhythm setup. Or quite frankly, I think you do really nice turf and trees, and you concentrate your money at the building face with additional landscaping. So I think you do one of those two things. So.
Yeah, that's good input. We definitely, this is not, we're not quite there with the landscaping.
Oh no, I understand.
Like plant materials, but I appreciate the comment so we can give that back to the landscape architect and know kind of where you guys are thinking as we continue the conversation.
So doing good planting in student neighborhoods is a lot of those trees get snapped off when they're young because of the behaviors in the neighborhood. Watch that over and over again. So you really have to put up a lot of protection when they're planted.
Yeah.
Fortunately.
Good.
So if we transition to the building, I'm just curious. So on the 5th floor, you've got patios on 2, 3, and 4. So on floor 4, that's not like a townhome. That's a floor unit, is it? That's a separate unit that's on 5.
Yes.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, did you consider stepping that unit back and continuing some measure of outdoor living space on that floor, or you don't have room for it, or just didn't seem to fit with the design, or?
Are you talking about the fifth floor level?
So Brett, like right where
Yeah.
the balconies are,
Yeah.
I mean, one of the comments was the verticality and trying to break up the verticality. And so we didn't want to continue that vertical nature of that by putting those insets.
Okay.
I think you continue to have a scale problem with this building. This view is especially telling because I think it is because it has an open bottom to it. There's a base here, and if you scroll to the next one, this is what, number 10. Go to number 11, please. Yeah, you can see that that's a much heavier building than the prior one. And the only difference really is that the base is, so, for me, I think that your biggest problem here is scale. I don't think you need to make it different on one side than the other side or anything like that. But I do believe that in this instance, maybe a base of some type on this building might make it a little more approachable from a pedestrian standpoint. And then I also believe that while the sawtooth is an interesting shape, I don't think it addressed at least the fundamental concern I had, and that was that the top floor need to be more like an attic story, in my opinion, and step back. I would like to see the whole top floor step back 10 feet. Such that it was this sort of crown, this recessed crown on top, not part of the sheer wall of the facade. So for me, I think that the fifth floor needs to be reduced substantially, and I know that affects pro forma and bottom line, but I think it's necessary here, and I also think that the base needs. I think a base could help on this building. Those are just my general comments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we looked at a base, detail, but I think our approach is really kind of maybe thinking about this in a more kind of modern way, and trying to avoid just sort of
I'm not suggesting traditional in any way. I'm not trying to talk about a column with the base and the shaft and the cap. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about something that gives scale to the street.
Yeah, I think I hear what you're saying. So it could be done with a slight material change or any of a number of ways. But you're not. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. You're not saying, hey, I want to see, the traditional look necessarily. You're just looking for a scale giving device. And so that's good advice. On the roof, on the fifth floor, we did look at a step back scheme. We feel that this is stronger. I mean, I think the integrity and the kind of cohesiveness of the building is much stronger with this approach. We do have a step back, which you can see. It's not a 10-foot step back, but there is a break there, and we also, as Kristen mentioned earlier, have the insets that this roof is more than just a simple sawtooth roof. It's got some real articulation with these insets, which I find to be very interesting. When we pull the roof, when we pull the fifth floor back, we lose a lot of that kind of energy, I think, and it starts to look much more like a 4-story building, with an attic. However, you really read this 4-story building more as a block at that point. So that was why we went away from that, from an architectural point of view.
That actually made no sense to me, but okay.
Okay. All right.
Brett, is there also a quality of interior space that you were able to achieve by creating the roof line as you did, so that those fifth floor units?
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite parts about this scheme, and one of those happier, kind of takeaways from our last meeting and the results of your comments, and in that, yes, we do have these what I think will be really wonderful loft units. Loft, I say loft in the sense that they have vaulted ceilings, and so I think it's a real kind of it's one of those things that passersby or people that think about wanting to live here would say, wow, that seems really neat and very unique and unusual and wonderful to see on a building, like this. So I think that's it's a big move.
Frank is one of my aesthetic heroes, so I usually agree with everything he says. And in this case, I beg to differ. I feel like the idea of a base middle top would start to look more like an attempt to break down the building's massing in a way that is by now sort of conventional and not very interesting in a lot of the other high street housing projects. And this is set back off High Street. And it looks to me like they did a little study of Beth and Bart's Out of Town, an award-winning housing project in Franklinton. And maybe it becomes the Columbus look. I actually think that the ziggurat toward the sky and the gesturing is different enough that it adds a feature and a character that's of interest, while the rest of the building can't really afford to do much to do that. So I'm sort of encouraged by the overall statement that this building makes. And I guess I sort of agree with what I think Carrie was saying earlier, that the place I'd like to see the street get character has less to do with changing materials on the building front and more to do with the sophistication of the landscape design and really creating a really handsome streetscape. I'm thinking of the George Aycock glass dormitory on 10th that has a pretty good streetscape with the amount of articulation between the way the building meets the ground and the way the ground addresses the street. So those two features on this building make me, the two features being the landscaping at grade and the crenellated sky, make me more encouraged about this particular dense residential development than a lot of the others that we've looked at.
KB, I hear you. I guess, my general comment, other than trying to arrive at a solution, which is what I was posing, is that I believe it is just too heavy. And I don't really care how it's solved. I don't care how it's made somehow more, somehow lighter, maybe more delicate. I don't care what the solution is in a way. That's up to the architect. But I still feel that it's especially this one right here. I think this is a heavy thing, and I just don't know why it has to be.
And that's where I disagree. I think that the vertical point lighten the top in contrast to what a cornice would be like. So I think the heavy overhanging horizontal line versus this staggered line really lightens the verticality.
Yeah, but I guess I'm not thinking that there will be that much impact of that top from the street. That it's going to be up there and back there, and yes, it's an interesting sales feature, but I just am not convinced that it's going to be as dominant or as important from a pedestrian view.
Getting back to the landscape thing, make sure you might have your electrical engineer look. I was just looking at the street view, and unfortunately, your side of the street has the heavy power poles, and they're not super tall. So
we have to bury those.
Okay, that was my next question. All right, good. That's awesome.
That's one of the other benefits no one's mentioned, but we are taking care of cleaning things up.
Okay.
Around the site.
Good. Yeah, the other thing relates to streetscape. Again, if you go immediately west of you, they used a decorative street light, not just to the gateway garage entrance, but along the building face that they lined the deck with. And you might consider there's no street lights because the Cobra heads are on your side of the street in front of those old houses. you might consider picking that up, unless others on the group feel like it, that it's more of a high street kind of thing, even though again, this isn't exactly on High Street. But I think that's another element that kind of enriches the pedestrian environment, having some sort of decorative street light that's more pedestrian scale and not these massive highlights. So
We're actually talking about that, I think, tomorrow.
okay,
Just generally the lighting, but we do have a couple of the more acorn-looking streetlights in the current plan that we're doing with the landscape architect.
okay.
And then just general lighting around the building and how we, light the entrances to the walk-up units from a variety of different reasons.
As well as the alley. I mean,
and,
that's going to look
yeah, and the alley for sure. Yeah,
yeah.
the alley too.
Okay.
Knowing you were coming, this is Doreen, knowing that you
ahead.
were coming back tonight with something that was a change on the roof line, I have to say that this is not what I was expecting, but the more that I've looked at it, I have to agree with KB. I'm sort of drawn to it. But knowing what Frank just said about the heaviness of it, would it be actually noticed or not? And one of the things I think has been very interesting for me is that to drive the length of High Street from the university area down into the downtown is how dramatically different it is between day and night. And at night, you start to see things that you have no idea architecturally. They sort of just blend in during the daytime. So taking this discussion of lighting, is there something that could also be done perhaps to make that roof a little bit more dramatic at some point? And I do like the sawtooth. I like the idea that you're going to use the interior in a sort of loft space. So I'm just sort of wondering if there isn't a way to highlight that, because it is unusual.
So, Doreen, are you thinking maybe, or I'm thinking maybe that there could be some just very subtle, light that's kind of grazing the wall from the step. So that could be, I'm talking about really low level, nothing bright or just super subtle. But that would be a nice touch, I think. But I don't know how the rest of the board feels about lighting like that. But
that's when I rely on Frank and others who have much more experience with it. But how do you bring that into know that there was a definite touch and it's observable, but maybe because you see it more at night than during the day, it makes it even more dramatic.
Maybe stepping the fifth floor back a little bit more than it is now, and putting a cove of lighting on top of the brick of the 4-story portion, and sort of graze lighting the face of it.
Yeah.
That might actually help dematerialize it a little bit.
Yeah, and then it starts to read like a much lower scale building, in the early evening hours, and of course at night it might actually bring the scale down to something more appropriate to what you're thinking, Frank.
Could be.
This is County. The question that's been sort of on my mind when you guys kind of came in front of us is what was the right scale building for the site, given that you'll need a variance anyway, and most of the surrounding buildings are 4 stories. And I was kind of curious to hear, I think, KB and Frank's comments, because I think they had sort of the strongest aesthetic feedback in the last time. I think in large part you've got a long way to convincing me that a 5-story building can work on the site. I think there's a lot of finessing. I think Frank's comment about what's the right relationship of the sawtooth 5th floor to the stories below, I'm not sure what the right answer is whether it needs to be 10 stories back so it's a real attic, or whether it's fine as it is, or I wonder what it would be like if it was back a little more, maybe in line with the wall of the balconies below. I'm not sure what the answer is, but in general, I think it's significantly improved. I think it sort of answers kind of KB's, or it seems to me it answers KB's charge to you last time around about meeting the sky in a more interesting way. And, I think there are answers for sort of Frank's kind of charge about it being heavy. I wonder if the corner we're looking at now, part of the problem isn't because, you've got these kind of brick piers in different colors and they all meet grade, but here you've floated one up off of pilotis, and maybe it doesn't want to be floated on pilotis. Maybe it needs to be a different thing. Maybe it needs to be the attic level coming down or something. Is that, it looks like it's meant to be corrugated metal. Is that your intent?
Well, really not corrugated. It sort of reads like that in the rendering, but we have in mind more of a standing seam, more of a traditional, not an industrial, necessarily an industrial kind of
I
look.
see, like a standing seam metal look, like a
vertical standing seam. Mm-hmm.
So, I think I don't want to tell you guys how to solve this. I think it's promising, and I think you've got plenty of ability to do so, obviously. But it seems to me the design challenge is between the sort of kind of urban normative 4-story brick abstracted kind of townhouse things, and then the sort of attic top level of standing seam with the kind of sawtooth roof and the way the two meet. And I think that's, this is a conceptual meeting and you're going to be back in front of us. So plus you needed the zoning variance to begin with. So I think there's plenty of time for you to sort of figure out and solve that. But at a general level, I would say the design I see today, certainly, I would say I'm convinced that the 5-story building can work on the site. Like, you guys are basically, you're asking, you're going to need a variance anyway, but you're asking for a little more height than the adjacent stuff. But I think this kind of nicely walks the line to me in being able to ask for a little more than is currently there and making a good case for it.
Well, great. And, we would love to, we're at a point now where we really, we really need to kind of lock in on the roof in terms of that setback. And so it's important for us to resolve that. It has a big impact on the design going forward and with our schedule. So we think this works. There are major impacts as you've alluded to with setting it back. We would really like to go with this approach, and we would hope that we could leave with that agreement, or at least that tentative tentative approval today.
You don't have the zoning variance on the site yet, do you?
No,
Well,
they
Keone.
have both.
Yeah, members of the board, this is Dave Perry. The zoning, there's a rezoning of the property and a variance application that Patrick has reviewed with each application, and we have time left in completing those zoning processes, including the development commission on the rezoning, and then city council. Just obviously I'm not involved with the design work, but stepping back from that, Parallel and Rhodey are working hard on this design wise, and I think you would all agree this has come along substantially, considerably since the first meeting last fall. The comments that I'm hearing at a conceptual stage don't affect any of the zoning variances. They don't affect that the property needs to be rezoned to a multifamily district, and they don't affect any of the zoning variances. So I'd like to throw out there for the board as this discussion is continuing about a motion on the zoning tonight. Parallel and Rhodey will be back many times, not only for this discussion, but many times to get to approved construction drawings, but none of those things will affect the zoning. So if possible, we'd like to proceed with the motion on the rezoning and variance applications tonight, and clearly Rhodey will be back.
Well, I mean, let's be clear about this. So what are you looking for this evening? Because on the agenda, this is listed as a conceptual application, which is a different thing for a motion on rezoning.
Yep.
Well, we're the project is still at a conceptual stage because it's not at a construction drawing stage, but we can't get to a construction drawing stage without zoning. And so,
right, and typically it's been the board's sort of approach that the zoning variance precedes, and vote on the zoning variance precedes the sort of the detailed sort of design work. Quoting Frank from a previous applicant, we're not going to do the hard work to pin down the design until we know you can actually build the building you're showing us.
yeah, agree. So that would mean that the zoning applications need to proceed so that it's a go-ahead to Parallel and Rhodey to get down to the really detailed drawings and know that the zoning's in place. So, and then the board would know that the project is a go relative to zoning. Obviously, the design approval is subject to your approval and additional meetings on these topics. But I'm very pleased with last month's meeting and this month's meeting that the comments have become much more focused about the landscaping and the shape of the roof and so on. And that's a good sign for all of us, for Parallel, for Rhodey, and for the board, that this is becoming a real project. But none of the things discussed last month or so far today would change the zoning or the variances. And that's a significant point for Parallel to proceed.
Dave, do you have the area commission support? And
We do.
And what about
University Area Commission is finished with a vote for approval.
Okay, and Wyland Park?
Wyland Park
They did.
was a unanimous approval of the 6-story, Frank, and they asked why was it reduced to 5, but they love the 5 also. So yes, all of those processes have been completed.
My only concern is, and it may be more of a question for Patrick, and it goes along with what Keone said, is that if it has not been published on the agenda that we would deal with zoning tonight, is it really appropriate for us to go ahead and do this? And I understand what Dave is saying, and I understand how the applicant, it seems as though this should be a smooth sail, but again, it's more of a technicality if it was not on the agenda.
Yeah, so Dave had mentioned to me on, what was it, maybe Tuesday, that they potentially wanted to go for the zoning. So I didn't update the agenda because I had already sent it out at that point.
Right.
But this is something, I mean, in last month, the zoning was approved for the 1475 North High Street. So it's happened before. I think it's really up to the board, though, if you guys want to take the initiative to take the vote or not.
Well, I would just add that the zoning is part of the concept approval, and Patrick's staff report says the applicant is requesting rezoning and the following variances.
Yeah.
Clearly there's some final design things to deal with. I mean, even at the concept stage, but last month there were some comments from the different board members that they were good with the zoning variances. Let's take another month to look at the 5th floor. So the zoning's been talked about a lot.
No, I agree. As I said, mine was more of a technicality.
You make a motion, Steve? What do you want to do?
It's up to you. I'm not really excited about, as was mentioned, I'm not really excited about doing something that's not on the agenda. Just for the fact that we have it and we publish it, but if the rest of the board wants to make a motion, I'm okay with that too.
I mean, typically as a point of order, there would be, like the 1475 North High one that would show up on the agenda twice. One of the asks would be for the zoning variance and the other would be for conceptual review. I'm scrolling through the materials and the variance ask is at the very last page. but I don't know. I'm on the fence on this one. I hear what Steve's getting at, and I'm not in disagreement with his concern.
Well, on 1475, that was also listed as a conceptual review, and I made a request for a motion on the zoning variances.
It was
and
listed both
proceeded.
ways, or well, excuse me, not 1475. I'm thinking of King and North High. Like when they
Right.
when they came in front of us, they were on the agenda twice for zoning variances and for design. The two are interrelated, but we're going to approve the variance change first.
Just knowing that there's a project zoning wise is the Indy 500 flag for Brett to go to work on much more detail.
Yeah, I guess for the rest of the board, like I'm hearing that, I guess I'm kind of hearing mixed reviews on the height. You know, and Frank is saying it's too heavy, but others on the board think that the scale is appropriate, and that's what the zoning would solidify.
Well, I'm not against the height. I was just talking about the articulation of it. So I don't have any problem with the zoning, honestly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's more a point of order that Keone brings up. It's not. I don't think it's content so much.
Okay.
Or
yeah,
I'm sorry,
I mean,
Doreen brought it up. I'm sorry.
And it was, as I say, it was a technicality. So I can live with however we decide to proceed.
Yeah.
Since the area commission's already voted on it, it doesn't seem as if
here's my feeling. I'm on the other side of the fence on these zoning applications all the time, and it gets to be a long drudge. And if we're on the fence, I would say let's give the benefit of the doubt to the applicant and go for it. Is my opinion.
That's fair. I'm good with that. I've got two questions. First of all, Doreen, how's the vote on the University Area Commission side, both the zoning committee and the full board?
Yeah, it was through the area commission, as Dave said.
What was the vote?
It was in favor. I don't remember the exact vote.
Okay. I mean,
Patrick may have it.
I mean, the variances are reasonable. I guess I would ask staff to read through the variances just so we hear them all. And I'm
sure.
I'm fine with
Yeah, they're on the staff report and at the bottom of the application. But starting out, it's the first one is the density is to reduce the lot area per dwelling unit from 700 square feet to 366. The landscaped area and treatment is to reduce the landscaping area behind the most rear portion of the building from 5% to 0%. They have a maximum lot coverage to increase the permitted lot coverage from 30% to 92%, and to remove 10-inch caliper trees without replacement on the parcel. That being said, street trees will be provided. Their parking is to reduce the calculated parking from 434 spaces to 143. The building lines are to reduce the calculated building setback line based on building to the east and west from 6.5 feet to 2 feet as depicted on the site plan, and to reduce the minimum rear setback from 2 feet to 1 foot. Number 6 is building separation in size to increase the maximum building size from 10,000 square feet to 228,000 plus or minus square feet, which would give it the 5-story building. And the maximum floor area ratio is to increase FAR from 0.8 to 3.33. It would permit a 60-foot building height, and the landscaping is to reduce the tree planting from 15 to 0.
Let me add one thing, Patrick. I said this 2 or 3 months ago, but just to remind the board, these standards, those variances apply because this is all residential, as opposed to the community
Right.
housing network project directly to the south is zoned commercial.
Right.
None of these standards apply to that, even though it's not commercial. There's a variance for there's a variance to the CPD that allowed that. The Edwards project is zoned commercial. The Gateway project is zoned commercial. So we have large multifamily projects that were handled differently on zoning, and I just can't get there on zoning this to commercial without a commercial component. So we're applying 1991 standards to a location that everybody has agreed is appropriate for larger and denser.
You mean you can't do a CPD because there's no commercial component to it?
Correct. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I mean the R4 use for the site is pretty restrictive. Basically, you can just build like a 2-story apartment building. I mean,
That's right.
I think the variances are fine from my standpoint. I think like I said, my take on this project when it first showed up was whether or not the site could handle 5-story versus 4 and what that meant. I think the design convinces me that there's a way to get there, and I think the variances are all reasonable in support of the project. So, I think you guys understand that that doesn't mean we're going to approve the design as is, but we're going to approve the variances, and that'll allow you to design to something that meets that zoning envelope.
Sounds like a motion.
I understand that, and Brett and Kristen do also. This is a go ahead to be further responsive to your comments.
Yep.
Okay. So is there a motion then for the variance?
Yeah, I'll make it. I move we approve, we're not approving anything. I move that we support the zoning variances as requested for this project.
And the rezoning.
Oh, it's rezoning too? Okay, and the rezoning, yes. Yeah, small detail, right? Got it.
We knew what you meant, but
I didn't. Yeah.
Okay, that is a motion. Do we have a second?
Carrie, second.
Okay.
Carrie, it's a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, I'm sorry, all opposed, same sign. Support for that is approved.
I guess, do we have good feedback from the design perspective and the conceptual review? I'm mostly asking the applicant on how to move forward. What I'm hearing is, this story is good, but there needs to be improvements in how that maybe step backs or it appears lighter, and then improving the streetscape for more permanent street trees and enhancing the landscape, moving that forward or more towards the building, and opening up that strip of grass there. Is there anything else I'm missing? Doreen had mentioned maybe looking at the lights as well.
Yeah, I would like, Patrick, thank you. I would like to get a little clarification on whether the step back is something we really need to look at again, because
me,
it's a big impact.
Yeah, I can answer that. For me, when I threw out 10 feet, that was sort of a challenge, okay? But I do think that, like Keone said, I do think that some modest setback would improve the design, in my opinion. That's me.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, to me, conceptually, I think you need to clarify the relationship between the brick base below and the corrugated metal up above, or the corrugated standing seam metal up above. And the fact that the two masses are in such essentially coplanar to each other confuses the concept a little. So, I think whether it's 0 feet versus 10 feet, there's a lot of room to work with between those two limits. But I think, if speaking in architectural terms, I think you've got the brick vertical mass is below, and I think you've got the metal standing seam above, and there are two separate and distinct elements that are sort of coming together in the building. And I'm sure you can figure out the best architectural way to sort of deploy that.
Yeah, great. I hear what you're saying, I think, but there's a big difference for us in terms of sort of articulating it in with material or with a detail versus a real 5 foot, call it, step back. So it has a big impact on our structure for the top floor, and of course our planning to keep these units more uniform, and the plumbing risers and all of that. It has a big impact. So we would love to work with you to come up with some brilliant. Well, we would love to present some really brilliant ideas about how to achieve what you're saying without doing without going forward with a sort of pronounced physical step back for the building.
And I'm going to go back to what I said at the beginning, which is that I don't think this project can be designed well by committee. You've heard some different points of view, and you're going to have to design it in the way that you believe is correct. I'm going to reinforce what I said, which is I think that the vertical expression of the building that culminates in these gestures toward the sky, in the pointed, staggered facade, is antithetical to setting it back. If you set it back, that's a different idea. That's a different way of capping the building at the top. And so I like what I see. I like this version. I like its massing. It's less than the usual 6-story urban residential housing building. It's lower than that. And because of using the diagonal lines that end the building in the opposite of a horizontal cornice, something very different, to me, that lightens the feel of it. And if you start doing too much additional movement with massing and setback, I think you're going to lose that. So I'm saying that taking all of the ideas and combining them, you're going to end up with Velveeta, and that's not going to be cheese. So I think you have to do what's strong and what you believe is compositionally most successful, and I've given my point of view, which is different than some of the other committee members.
Yeah, and I wanted to say one thing, and then I know that maybe some of the others would want to comment too, but these insets that we have here read all the way through the attic roof, and that's really, I think, a key feature. When we step back, we lose that, and so there's a linkage that's happening here that really brings the attic, the roof, the floor, into the rest of the composition of the project. So it's less like a hat, and it's more interleaved.
Yes.
With this design, which is one of the things I really like.
Well, let me ask. Hey, KB, let me ask you a question.
Yep.
I hear what you're saying, and I think you make a pretty reasonable point. At the insets, it seems to work because it's like a 5-story vertical thing, and of course, the sort of corrugations on the hat on the brick tower is to sort of address the scale issue. What do you think about the way the standing seam spans the two brick towers so that the form is kind of an H? Like, does that support the verticality or the scheme, or does it work against it? I wonder if the solution might not be as simple as insetting the bit of it that is sort of cantilevered out over the balconies below.
Yeah, somebody asked that.
Yeah, which will be something we can do much more easily.
I hear what KB's saying, and I think it's a good point. Like, you're trying to have it both ways, and honestly, you're kind of getting there. It's like the attic layer is, a different material, and it's got a different form, and it sort of addresses the scale issues of the site, but, without, doing the sort of same layered 4-story stuff that, is across the street. So I hear what KB's saying, and for me, I think the muddy part is the way you basically have these kind of H's over those balconies.
Yeah.
But brilliance is appreciated.
Well,
Voice, Frank. You appreciate.
What? I'm sorry, what?
You're not trying to be a passive voice. You appreciate brilliance, right?
I
Not
appreciate
generically brilliance is appreciated. Okay.
Yes.
Frank appreciates brilliance. Got it.
Any other final comments, since we have another case after this?
Let me, members of the board, Dave Carey, one more time. Let's, would it be appropriate to say, just for direction for Rhodey in parallel, that Brett works on these points of discussion about the materials or materials on the 5th floor, the lighter look, the landscaping, the lighting, and so on, and come back on those points one more time before, and then you say either you've got it, we're good, or maybe a little more tweaking, but then that's you know, they know completely where they are, and you know, hopefully everything's good with you at that point.
Yeah.
Just one more discussion on those items.
I mean, I'm not going to limit myself to
Right.
numbers, so nice try. But
I didn't mean you
think
can't
you're
say anything
close.
else.
I think you're really close. I think it's a nice team. I think you can use a little refinement, but
Okay.
I have no doubt, based on the progress to date, that you're more likely than not going to get there in one more meeting.
Yeah, I think that's good feedback, Brett.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's great. Appreciated it, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
Guys.
Okay.
Next case.
Thank you.
UID 20-11-002, 1475 North High Street. Patrick?
Yeah, the corner of North High Street and 8th Avenue. The applicant's proposing to redevelop the site with a 6-story, 72-foot tall mixed-use building that will feature 146 dwelling units. Additionally, the building will feature an accessory leasing office and ground-level commercial tenant space on High Street. 29-space parking garages included as part of the proposal, and the existing site currently has a mix of uses, including commercial residential spaces, and 2 contributing residential structures are proposed for demolition as part of the proposal. The applicant has endorsed the courtyard on the proposal based on board comments. Additionally, the proposal requires the following variances: permit the mixed-use building with a maximum of 146 dwelling units, and to reduce the clear vision triangle at the intersection of West 8th Avenue and North Wall Street. Staff is generally supportive of the proposal. Additional information will also be required at the time of request for action to review for consistency with plan recommendations. The University District Plan recommends regional mixed use for sites with a minimum FAR and no maximum FAR. The plan also recommends that the scale of new construction be influenced by the nearby contributing buildings and streetscape, and the setbacks of higher stories in the front facade should be considered for taller buildings to lessen their visual impact. The plan additionally provides recommendations for window and door openings, building materials, lighting, landscaping, and screening. Staff notes the setback on North Wall Street may be appropriate, but if not provided, it is recommended the applicant should demonstrate that adjacent properties are not negatively impacted by the proposed height, or that there are additional mitigating factors. Staff asks the board to discuss whether they view the current proposal as appropriate to adjacent residential uses. The proposed mixed use is supported and consistent with the plan, including commercial part of the ground floor. The building's articulation and transparency on the ground floor are also consistent with the plan's recommendations. Staff notes the demolition of the 2 existing buildings may be supportable due to the high quality design of the new structure, and with the recognition of the size and scale of existing buildings make it challenging to preserve the buildings to develop the site. Staff recommends a historic American buildings survey to be considered to document the existing contributed buildings if demolished. Additionally, staff notes the building courtyard has been flipped towards 8th Avenue as the board recommended doing. Application is being heard for conceptual review.
So is this one for conceptual review, or are we voting on this one too?
This one is conceptual review. The zoning was taken care of last month.
Yeah, I think we voted on those variances in the previous meeting, maybe.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, who will be speaking on this case? Please identify yourself for the record.
Some of the architects.
Steve, this is Dave Carey. I'm involved with this also, but I don't expect to say much on the design discussion. And just so you know, multiple people from Avenue Partners are here also.
Okay. Those who have not been sworn in, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Whoever would like to start the presentation, please go.
I will. Thank you again to this board for the opportunity to come back and show you some adjustments that we made to the project. Let's put the site plan up. Can we control the the images? Because I think we can do that here. Patrick, if you could let us take charge of that.
No, do you turn that over?
Yeah, who's going to be doing the presenting?
Okay. We're going to present here, but I want to start with the building diagram. In our last, and I'm not going to revisit some of the other discussions that we had in the past. I want to focus on where the design is headed and then get feedback from the board. The comment was made, and I think had a lot of validity, of should we consider flipping the building so that the courtyard, this is a U-shaped building, that the courtyard faced south rather than north. The last image had it north, and one of the main reasons we did that is that we controlled the facades facing High Street, facing to the south at 8th, and facing to the west. But we don't control what happens to the north. And so there was some concern that if we had units facing the north, then there's always a risk of what happens to those. So we did, although opening to the south, I think did offer some opportunities. It certainly will have an impact of increasing the amount of sunlight that gets into that space. And it helps particularly on the inside corner units, because those units, if they were facing north, would probably never get any sunlight. And in this, at least they have an opportunity to get potentially some direct sunlight, if not reflected light. We have the diagram of the site that is, it's, you may have to go to, it's a different, it's a different image. They turned in one more. The only, you go back to the site plan, or the floor plan. The only thing we have modified, and it's in your packet, it's not, must not be on my machine. Patrick may have it. The floor plan image has evolved a little bit to create a terrace on the north facade that steps back. We've modified the units at the northern edge of the courtyard. There was a second thing in the email that showed that.
No, I'm not.
It was a later turned in site plan, building plan.
The latest one I had was on page
Go to the left. Go to the left. It's in that one.
That's this one, Joe. Oh. It's from Dave.
Patrick, can't you just let them be the presenters?
We are.
Yeah. I guess it's not. I thought that was in our image, but it's not. We submitted another drawing that was added, and Patrick should have that.
Joe, can Matt pull it up off your email? Just go to your email and pull it up off the email, and then share that screen.
This is the email.
It's not the right one. Go to the right.
This is what Dave sent.
I opened it and it had a different one. I'm sorry. I thought, because I looked at an email earlier today and I thought it was in that.
Joe, I don't think that's super important on what we're trying to accomplish.
Well, yes. The only point I wanted to make is that we came up with a solution to get some relief for those units that face the north. And there's a terrace that steps back approximately, I think it's 15 plus or minus feet from the property line, that then all of the units that are on that north get a view of that terrace, so that if there's ever a building to the north, it will be somewhat distance off the property line, so there's some separation. Because that was our biggest concern in the point of flipping this building over to the south. So that is a diagram. We actually think it works better. But in the process of doing that, we also looked at the possibility of adding some balconies on more facades. We only originally had some balconies in the courtyard and on the west facade. We were under the belief that balconies on a high street were not encouraged. We have limited balconies. They're on the corners. So basically our 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms and all the 1s and 2s have balconies. The smaller kind of studio / 1 bedrooms will not have balconies. And we've actually expanded the depth variation for these kind of bump out elements, the geometric forms, kind of incorporated the balcony elements within those forms and tried to create some conditions where we broke the continuous feel of those, so that there wasn't this feel of everything lining up vertically. So we wanted that sense of movement and the geometric kind of study on the facade. And we really liked the idea of incorporating that detail throughout the building. And we changed the corner. The previous corner had kind of a curtain wall element on the corner, and the top floor is the community club space, and it will have some outdoor space on that top level. And we like the idea of expressing that as being different than the rest of that corner, but introducing the balconies to the corners of the building that help break the scale down and give an interest to those areas, as well as a pretty dynamic feel from the unit plans. And our intent is to incorporate this character throughout the building on all facades, but we didn't really want to go too far without feedback from this board. So I personally feel like this is a more complete statement, because it's one kind of integrated statement throughout the building, rather than a statement on a corner and a statement in the field of the building. So, and I'm interested in the board's feedback.
Any other comments from anybody presenting before we go to the board? Okay, we'll open it up to the board for feedback then.
Joe, I think you did a great job bringing this design along, honestly. I think you've, more than just flipping it, I think the way you've further articulated the facades is for some reason, some way, I think you brought it more under control, but it's still, I think, pretty interesting. I'm anxious to see the north facade and the west facade, which I don't see here. And the only comment I have to make is that the ground floor below the courtyard, the 8th Street facade of it, I don't know, that middle 2 bays just seems like maybe something needs to happen there, but I don't have any specifics. It just seems a little odd to me, but that's all. But I think you've done a great job, Joe.
Joe, you're on mute. Joe, you're on mute.
Okay. That's just a mesh, so it's open to the garage. We're still working on the final articulation of the ground floor facade on the south. There are some moving parts as we're going through all this final kind of development as we're coordinating the variety of elements. And so that part will evolve a little bit, but we do want to have areas of solid and openness, and we're just contrary to where we were in the past with kind of the solid wall with the graphics. We're just letting it express as the parking structure, but then we'll put some kind of a mesh as a transparency for that. And we kind of left that open in the middle because we felt it related to the openness above.
Joe, this is Jason. I would just add to that the next time we come in, we'll come in with kind of a landscape plan for this elevation that will be a modified version of what you guys saw the last time. So we'll care a lot about how the trees and the plantings and the screening of that garage and how it relates to that opening of the courtyard. But we just want to make sure that we're heading in the right direction before we go down that path. But we certainly care a lot about how that's going to look.
Any other comments or feedback for them?
I guess one thing, I guess, our point of coming out of this meeting, and Joe made a comment about the balconies, and we want to be adamantly sure, and this is maybe my battle scars from previous projects, and Frank, you'll know that is on the project across the street, it was, and the board composition has changed, but it was made adamantly clear that balconies on High Street were not allowed. And I want to make sure that if we pursue down this path, that won't be an issue going forward, because there are now, in this example from last one, balconies on High Street.
I remember the meeting you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about. I do not share that view. I think that was a means of trying to control bad behavior. And I think it was not ill-advised. So I personally have no problem with balconies on High Street. I think that's where you want balconies, is on High Street.
Well,
yeah.
Does the board have any comments about the historic American building survey recommendation for those two sites there, or are you guys all right with getting rid of those?
This is Keanu. I'm not going to lose any sleep over those buildings going away. I mean, look, they're fine buildings, and fine buildings get torn down every day in the city, like the ones at King and High. These buildings are not worth more scrutiny than the other ones that are coming down, in my view. So I'm certainly open to hearing someone who disagrees, but I don't personally see that's that big of a deal.
Do you think that report is something you guys would like to see, though, or is that you don't need to see that?
No. I mean, I don't personally see the need for the report. I mean, hold on, I'm trying to Google the site again. I mean, they were nice-ish perioded buildings, and but I mean, what are you going to find out? That they're not significant. They're not significant enough. They're not landmarked. What are you possibly going to find out that's going to change your mind? At this point, that
I mean, I think from his perspective, it's more about just documenting what was there, and if anyone wanted to use that as a reference later down the future, they could do so. I'm fine with, I mean, it's up to you guys, I guess.
I mean, they look to me like, I don't know, I'm guessing here, maybe Doreen's more the historian than I am, 2030 era apartment buildings. They're, they're red brick. They've got some nice details, but again, they're not, they're not architectural landmarks. They're not anything special.
Okay.
I mean, I'm more upset about some of the stuff at King and High going away, and we're not doing half there. So I don't see why I would require this of the applicant.
Any other comments, feedback for them?
I mean, it's just county. I mean, from my standpoint, I think the sort of revised scheme makes sense. I mean, the previous scheme was fine too, but of course the courtyard to the north was going to be pretty dismal for those poor occupants who had the inside courtyard unit. So I think flipping the courtyard to the south is going to greatly improve the units that are at the far end of the courtyard, which honestly is better for you guys because you're going to get better rent out of them. From addressing Ryan's comment, that was actually a new thing when I joined the board, the whole no balconies on High Street. And I kind of get it because I think there is a lot of bad behavior on game day from certain undergrads. But I mean, the flip side of it is I'm not so sure that's, something we should be policing in the architecture. So to me, I think it's more, does the balcony make sense in the context of the overall design? The only one that sort of leaps out to me is the sort of one on the corner of King and High seems a little clunky at the top. It's just, I'm not sure the architectural resolution is there yet. It might just be the model. It looks like there's a solid wall behind it. So I don't know if that's the community space or that's an apartment and that's really a solid wall. And it might just be because the design's still in progress. The one thing I want, and I think the comments about cleaning up or continuing development on the base are a good one. I think the base on 8th Avenue still could use a little bit of finessing. It feels a little bit like an alley facade at the moment. And again, I get that the design sort of underway. I think the one comment I would offer is, well, two comments. Like Frank, I'd like to see the alley facade and the north facade. And then I wonder if the courtyard might not be a little different. It seems like you guys are turning in some way the treatment of the outside facades into the courtyard. And I guess I wonder if the courtyards, oftentimes the courtyards in these kind of buildings are not quite the same as the street facades. Not that they're inferior, they shouldn't be, but I think they could maybe be a little different, a little calmer, a little quieter, partly to draw the kind of distinction between the facades that meet the city street and the courtyard facades, which really are a little more internal. And I don't have anything specific in mind. It's just sort of a question I'm putting out there.
That's a good comment, I think, Keelan.
Any other comments or feedback?
I guess this is Patrick. Is the board okay with the scale of this building? And they just want to see the west and north facade to see how that might integrate with the rest of the building? Or are you guys all right with this and maybe we just want to move into the materials after maybe the first floor is continued to be built out as well, or designed out, I should say.
Hey, this is County. They're in rights on the zoning. They're not asking for variances. The scale is appropriate for High Street. I think the articulation strategy of the facades helps to break down the building, albeit in an unconventional manner. So, I don't have any real issues as compared to, for example, the previous project or King and High.
I just wanted to let the applicant hear that.
Sure. Yeah, that's totally reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
From my standpoint, I think, I think the general approach to the scheme seems reasonable. I'd like to see the other two facades. I think, they're, excuse me, looks like based on the model, they're still working, but the overall approach seems reasonable to me.
Any other final comments?
My only thing is we've heard from two members. I know there's more members than that, and I'm just assuming silence from others means that they're in agreement. I think we just want to know that we spend the next 30 days or a month moving down this direction, that it has the overall support. Obviously, there's lots of details that we have to get into and make sure everyone's comfortable, but we don't want to spend another 30 days and then come back and realize there's folks that didn't speak up on this that then point out things that set us back and go another direction.
Hello, Jason. This is KB. I have nothing new to add over what my colleagues have said.
Awesome. Okay. I didn't know you were still on. So, and I know you had strong opinions last time. So honestly, for me, it was really important to hear you.
Thank you, because I really appreciate having turned the courtyard. That was what I think made a big difference today. And Joe, articulated very well the difference that it made. And so I'm in agreement with that.
All right. Thank you.
This is Carrie. Same. I don't have any new comments. You've picked up on comments from the previous meeting, so I'm happy with what the manner in which the project is proceeding. So I'm good.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming in. That sounds like we got it wrapped. Moving on, staff approved applications. Does anybody have any questions or comments on any of these staff approved applications for Patrick? Patrick, do we need to make a motion to approve, or they're already staff approved? That it's just there for questions, right?
I believe we do need a motion to approve.
So
Yeah,
we
that's my understanding.
or staff approve? Patrick?
I move that we approve the staff approved applications.
All right. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to get clarification. So you approved them, and then we need to approve them on top of that?
You need to approve them into the record, yes. And then Keone just needs the first.
Okay.
The motion, so we need a second and then a vote.
Okay. All right. Do we have a second?
Carrie, second.
All right. It's a motion second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Staff approved applications have been approved. Any old business?
It's maybe new business is a better word, but there has been a request for a business meeting in February, and I want to confirm that you guys want to have that. It's for the King and High proposal. They want to ensure that their material application is complete before a request for action at the February meeting.
So why would that be in an outside meeting? Why wouldn't that be in a regular meeting?
Because they want to make sure that all the materials they have are in line and good to go. And it's just maybe if there are any strings that they need to tie up, that will give them the 2 weeks to do so.
We've spent a lot of time on those guys.
Sorry, go ahead, Frank.
Nothing. That was my only comment. We've spent a lot of time on those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the question I would ask is, I mean, the idea of tying the application up, do they think in a month they're going to come in front of us and they're going to get approval on a certificate of appropriateness?
Well, they want to use the business meeting hearing to facilitate the hearing going smoothly.
I think we're setting a really dangerous precedent if we start doing that a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
100% agree. 100% agree. I think you're asking for us to meet again with
just to make
to
the
do the
project
things
move
we're doing in the
faster.
meeting because they want to. Yeah, I don't
Well,
think.
let me offer a countering opinion here, mostly because, like Frank, I'm often on the opposite side of this, and I'm not saying we should do it, so I'm not speaking that strongly in it. But I think the perspective from the standpoint of the architect, like if you're working on a project and you're trying to pursue approval, like a month between feedback is a long time to go. Like, you know, I go to a meeting, I get some feedback, I work on a bunch of stuff, but I wait 30 days until I go back and get more feedback. Like 2 weeks is a more reasonable interval of time. So, you know, I can see why someone would be like, hey, you know, I really don't want to go a month between meetings. And in fairness, you do that with other commissions as well. So, you know, that's fine. It's part of business. But, you know, I can see why they're asked.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Steve and others. I do not recommend using these meetings as a conceptual review and do not want to duplicate the hearing. I think what they're really looking for is just to make sure that their application packet is complete. And if not, then what other materials you would want to see before they can go for a request for action.
Well, Patrick, I think they know the answer to that question. All they have to do is remember. You know, I would pose that we not have the business meeting, that we tell them to put their best foot forward at the next meeting, and then if at that meeting we determine that there's some reason to have a business meeting 2 weeks after that to help them refine their design or something, maybe so. But I think they just need to put their best foot forward, and I think that they have listened to us, and well, I don't know if they've listened to us. They've certainly been in.
Well, they went about 8 months without listening to us. So the fact that they're a little bit behind really doesn't concern me very much. I mean, don't mean to sound bitter about it, but we kept telling them what they needed to do and they just didn't do it. And they came back with the same stuff again and again and again. And now they're feeling like, you know, I got to have a special meeting. I'm like, no, it's.
Yeah. I mean, we met with them enough time. We put enough time in.
Feedback. That's kind of reasonable. I mean, I think Frank's proposal is fine. I mean, let me be clear, though. I mean, they're not going to get approved at the next meeting.
Probably not.
I mean, we do, you know, because even purely on sort of a factual basis, the certificate of appropriateness requires typical wall sections and details. We want to see the building as it will get built. And while we don't expect 100% construction drawings, we're also not going to give a certificate of appropriateness based on just pretty presentation drawings.
Yep.
So they're not going to get action at the next meeting because they're not going to be far enough along.
Right.
I mean, look at like if you look at like you know, these Brad Blumenscheid projects that we've approved, they have working drawings. They have drawings that show what the building is going to be built like.
Yep.
Any other new business?
Yeah, I'd like to ask if there's any support for pressing Kroger on finishing their project at
Yes, yes, Frank, I appreciated your comments about that, and I would definitely support that. I don't know if a jointly signed letter by us would be a useful tool, but I would suggest, Frank, if you would draft briefly what you said today, and we as a board were willing to sign that, I would propose that. I would suggest that that might be something that we would try.
I would happily sign that.
Frank, remind me again, what was the original agreement?
The original agreement, I believe, that they had to build the building on the corner within so many years, and it's long past.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
Patrick, what is the process here? I'm happy to put the letter together. I'm curious though, Patrick, what is the process?
Off the top of my head, I don't know, but I can reach out to Mark Gervais and identify what that might be.
I'm equally curious what teeth the
I
state
think
has
it's
to
Chris
force them to do it.
Pizzuti. In my opinion, it's Chris Pizzuti, not Mark Gervais. Mark is planning. Chris is zoning. That is enforcement of law.
Okay. I guess off the top of my head, what I'm saying is I personally don't know what the exact next steps would be. But my next steps would be to bring this up with Mark Gervais and identify what that can be, and then move forward in that direction.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you're saying it is a zoning code, then zoning violation.
It's a CPD. It's commercial plan development in the text.
Yeah, I understood. And I'll bring it up with them.
Okay, I'll work on the letter. Thank you.
Okay, Cat Keone.
Nice cat, Keone.
Who is that? Oh, it was a cat.
That was adorable.
Yeah, sorry, it was the backside of the cat.
Frank, another moment of new business is I really like the rug behind you. That's quite a nice setting.
Yeah, that's dramatic.
I just hung that. That's
good.
It's Caucasian. That's what it is. It's sorry. Yeah, it's
not bad for a white guy.
Any other new business?
Wow, we're ending on time. I love it.
We'll call Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, because we only have 3 cases.
See you all.
Yeah.
See you soon.
All right, thank you.
Bye. Bye. Bye.